Mic test. Check, check. Hey. Sound check. Test. Hey. Sound.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the International Free Public Lecture Series. We are delighted to have you here with us today for a full day of intellectual exchange with our distinguished guests from the Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca, Spain. In a few moments, our formal program will begin. As we prepare, may we request everyone to kindly settle into your seats and place your mobile devices on silent mode. Should you wish to document today's event, we encourage you to do so respectfully and without interrupting the lectures. Thank you for joining us once again, and we shall begin shortly. Good morning again to everyone. Welcome to our second day of the International Free Public Lecture Series. We are delighted to have you here with us today for a full day of intellectual exchange with our distinguished guests from the Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca, Spain. In a few moments, our program will begin. As we prepare, may we request everyone to kindly settle into your seats and place your mobile devices on silent mode. Thank you for joining us. We'll begin shortly. Good morning again to everyone. To center our minds and hearts, may I invite everyone to join us in the convocation. This will be followed by the singing of the national anthems of the Philippines and the country of the distinguished guests, the Spain.
Please all rise. Let us put ourselves in the holy presence of God. In the name of the Father, of the Son, of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, source of all wisdom, truth, and knowledge, we come before you with grateful hearts as we gathered for this Erasmus Mundus Project International Pre-Public Lecture Series, celebrating the spirit of academic collaboration, international partnership, and the shared pursuit of learning between Centro Escolar University and Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca, Spain. We thank you for this opportunity to strengthen the bonds of friendship among institutions, cultures, and nations through the Faculty Mobility Exchange Program. May this gathering inspire us to seek truth with humility, to share knowledge with generosity, and to use our gifts in the service of humanity. We humbly ask you to bless our distinguished resource speaker, Dr. Fernando Reyes Reyna. Grant him wisdom, clarity, and confidence as he shares his expertise and experiences with us. May his insights enlighten our minds, enrich our understanding, and encourage meaningful dialogue among all participants. Bless also the organizers whose dedication and hard work have made this event possible. Reward their efforts with strength, joy, and the fulfillment of knowing that they have contributed to the advancement of education and international cooperation. Guide every participant gathered here today, open our hearts and minds to new ideas, deepen our appreciation of different perspectives, and inspire us to become instruments of peace, excellence, and service in our respective communities. May this lecture series bear abundant fruit, fostering academic excellence and intercultural understanding. We entrust this gathering to the loving intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the seat of wisdom, that she may accompany us in our pursuit of knowledge, guided by faith and compassion. We ask all this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and colleagues, muy buenos días y bienvenidos to today's session of the International Free Public Lecture Series. A pleasant day to our university officials, faculty members, students, researchers, invited guests, and colleagues from partner institutions, and everyone joining us online. At this juncture, let us have the welcome remarks to be represented by our Senior Vice President, Dr. Teresa R. Perez.
Good morning, everyone, to our distinguished resources speaker, Dr. Fernando Reyes Reyna, and his wife. And of course, the deans of the school who collaborated in this academic activity that we are having, and the program heads. No, I'm going to mention only one name in the program head because I think I missed him yesterday. Mr. Roy Ryan Hoson, the program head of accountancy, both for Manila and Makati. So I'm not sure he's in front of me, but I was not able to mention. Si Julius nasa tabi, na-mention ko pa. Of course, our faculty members, our colleagues from our partner institutions, our students, honored guests and friends, good day and welcome to the second day of our Erasmus Mundus Project International Free Public Lecture Series and Faculty Mobility Exchange Program. So although our university president, Attorney Danilo Concepcion, is unable to join us today due to prior commitments, he sends his warm greetings and best wishes for another productive and inspiring day of learning. Yesterday, we began a meaningful academic journey. Together, we exchanged ideas, asked important questions, and experienced firsthand how collaboration when Dr. Reyes talked about data visualization. That conversation reminds us that knowledge grows stronger when it is shared generously and pursued with curiosity. Today, we continue that journey. One of the greatest strengths of higher education is that learning is never confined within the walls of a classroom or the boundaries of a country. Through international collaborations such as Erasmus Mundus Project, we are reminded that universities have a common mission to cultivate minds that are critical, compassionate, innovative, and committed to making a positive difference in society. As educators, researchers, and lifelong learners, we are called not only to acquire knowledge, but also to transform it into meaningful action. Every lecture we attend, every conversation we engage in, and every partnership we establish has the potential to create ripples of positive change that extend far beyond this auditorium. This morning, we are privileged once again to learn from Dr. Fernando Reyes Reyna through two timely, thought-provoking lectures. The first explores behavioral economics and decision-making in education and communication, reminding us that behind every policy, every lesson, and every decision are people whose choices are shaped not only by logic, but also by values, experiences, and emotions and relationships. Understanding these human dimensions enable us to become more effective educators, communicators, and leaders. Our second lecture is influencer marketing for services, ideas, and education. Invites us to look beyond the commercial use of digital influence and consider how credibility, trust, and authentic communication can inspire learning, shape public engagement, and advance educational institutions. In an age where information travels instantly, our greatest influence is not measured by the number of followers we have, but by the integrity of our message and the positive impact we leave on others. These topics remind us that education is ultimately about people, how they think, how they decide, how they connect, and how they are inspired to act. As educators, we are in many ways influencers ourselves. Every lecture we deliver, every conversation we have, and every example we set has the power to shape minds, influence choices, and transform lives. I saw all of this in the lecture of Dr. Reyes yesterday. I like the examples that he gave in his lectures because it's easily understandable. I therefore encourage everyone to listen attentively, participate actively during the discussions, and take this opportunity to exchange ideas with colleagues from different institutions and disciplines. And of course, at Central Scholar University, we have that our mission of Ciencia y Virtud calls us to pursue knowledge with integrity, wisdom, and a deep sense of responsibility. It is through international engagements like this that we strengthen not only our academic programs, but also our commitment to preparing globally competent graduates and faculty members who can contribute meaningfully to an increasingly interconnected world. Allow me to end with a thought from the American writer Henry Ford. I think this is the same format I used yesterday. So according to Ford, he once said, "Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success." As we continue this international exchange of ideas, may we remember that the most enduring influence is not found in titles or technology, but in the lives we touch through wisdom, integrity, and service. May today's conversation inspire us to become better decision makers, better communicators, and above all, better educators for our students and for the communities we serve. May today also strengthen the partnerships we have begun, deepen the friendships we have formed, and inspire new ideas that will continue long after this lecture series has come to an end. On behalf of Central Scholar University, thank you for joining us once again. I wish everyone another meaningful, productive, and inspiring day. Welcome, and buenos dias a todos.
Thank you very much, Dr. Perez. Before we begin today's program, allow me to offer a brief reflection. Universities are often described as places where knowledge is produced. But I think there's something more than that, more profound than that. They are places where people are transformed through every lecture that is attended and every conversation that is shared, just like today. The French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu described this process through the idea of capital, particularly cultural capital. It's the knowledge, competencies, and intellectual dispositions that expand our capacity to understand society and contribute meaningfully to it. Today's international lecture series is aimed at enriching that cultural capital. It is an opportunity to encounter ideas developed in another part of the world, to place them in conversation with our own experiences, and to examine how they might inform our work as educators, communication professionals, and students. We are honored to welcome a distinguished scholar from the Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca, and nos alegro mucho contar con la encantadora presencia de su esposa. Bienvenida, Señora Sandra. We are also uniquely privileged to extend a very warm welcome to his lovely wife who graces us with her presence today. Thank you for choosing to spend your day with us, and I hope today's lectures challenge your assumptions, deepen your understanding, and inspire new conversations long after this program concludes. As we proceed, let me call on the Dean of the School of Education, Liberal Arts, Music, Social Work to discuss the raison d'être for today's event, as well as to acknowledge the diverse group of participants. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Maria Rita Dacanay Lucas.
Thank you, JC. Good morning to everyone. I would like to acknowledge the presence of everyone here. Of course, this is jointly organized not only by the School of Education, Liberal Arts, Music, and Social Work, where we have our MC, the program head for communication and media. We also have Mr. Julius De Leon, the program head for political science, for program head for education, Ms. Christine Juan. And this is jointly organized by the CEU Graduate School, with Dean Francis. Yesterday he was here. And of course, present now also, I'd like to acknowledge the Dean of the School of Accountancy and Management, Dr. Rosemary Saw, and the program head as well, Mr. Roy Ryan Hawson. Okay? And we have faculty members from both programs, both from SELAMS and SAM, also the graduate school. And we have several departments like the Social Sciences Department. And then for the other schools, ano kaya dyan, make some noise, konting noise lang. I know that there are dentistry students here. Hello. Hi, we're here. Nasaan kayo? Wave your hands. Ayan. And then we have medical technology students. Thank you. They are here because they are enrolled in contemporary world, no? And some in Rizal courses as well. So that's part of our social science courses. We also have from NHM. I checked the registration. From that is nutrition, home economics, and tourism management. Asan yung T doon? Wait a minute. Ayan, NHM, sorry. School of Nutrition, Home Economics, Hospitality Management, because they also have previously home economics and nutrition courses. Yes, right. And then we also have from other schools, maybe some have come, but let me just acknowledge Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Muntinlupa, PATS Aeronautics, Philippine Normal University, Radio Veritas, Southville Business School, and UP Diliman. Thank you for also registering and being with us. Okay, so I have one slide to give you a rationale of how this came to be. Ayan. Cannot cut. It's okay if you just saw the infographic. Okay, years ago, just a few years ago, we had Project Fourth. This involved 5 Philippine universities, of course, including Centro Escolar University, PUP, West Visayas State University, La Salle Bacolod, and University of Northeastern Philippines. So we were together, that's Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao represented, together with 15 DepEd schools and 3 universities in Europe, Deusto University in Spain, Groningen in the Netherlands, and Bologna University in Italy. So we worked together for like 2 years, developing curriculum and also providing teacher training for deaf ed teachers. So at the end of like 3 years of that project, we were all, 75 of us, we all went to Brussels, Belgium to present to the European Commission because this is part of the Erasmus Mundus project. For CEU to join, we entered and we were in a way accredited, no, by the European Commission. So we are now open for more collaborations and we can also submit proposals for funding. So the next step that happened was, next slide. This is the what happened next, no? So last year, we entered a memorandum of agreement with the Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca for a faculty exchange. So this public interdisciplinary lecture series, next slide, was organized as part of this Erasmus Mobility Initiative of the European Commission. And as I've mentioned, the memorandum of agreement between the two universities. The partnership aims to strengthen cooperation through faculty and student exchanges. I was just talking to Dr. Fernando about the possibility of student exchange, not maybe an entire program, but maybe micro-credentials. Na? We were discussing earlier. So we can have student exchange, research and teaching activities, information sharing, and other mutually beneficial academic initiatives. So as one of the outcomes, that's why we're all here, it's Dr. Fernando Reyes Reina delivering lectures. So these are on yesterday, data visualization, and today, behavioral economics and decision making, and influencer marketing. So these sessions are designed to connect theory with practical applications, like what we experienced yesterday, in education, communication, business, management, accounting, while promoting interdisciplinary learning and international academic endeavors. Now, so that's why we have dentistry, medtech, NHM, psychology students. I also saw psychology students because our aim really is to be interdisciplinary. So the lecture series also supports the continuing partnership between the two institutions, including a planned faculty mobility of CEU faculty members to the Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca in April 2027. So tayo naman ang pupunta doon sa Spain. Sama kayo. Sama tayo. Ayan. Okay? So thank you everyone. I'm not closing it. I'm just welcoming you. Thank you everyone for joining us and supporting this meaningful academic and international learning initiative. Yesterday, we were also live in YouTube streaming in our Facebook, CEU Official and Salams. So I hope we are also doing that today so that more can be reached by these free public seminars of our guests. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dean. Are you up for some entertainment? Songs? Anyone? So before we begin our lecture series, we pause to celebrate the creativity and identity of our own community through a special cultural presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it from the CEU Singers, Manila. Thank you to our talented performers for that wonderful presentation. There are a lot more this afternoon for that. Okay, so friends, can you recall one decision that you made the moment that you woke up today? For sure you made one decision or two. Now, every day, we make countless decisions. We choose which information to pay attention to, whose voices we trust, and how we respond to the messages that surround us. Many of these choices feel entirely our own, but in reality, they're often shaped by experiences, environments, and social influences that operate beyond our immediate awareness. This can actually be described in the concept of habitus, the dispositions that we develop through our families, communities, schools, and lived experiences that quietly influence how we perceive and navigate the world. This reflection provides an interesting point of departure for our first lecture. Behavioral economics offers another lens through which we understand human decision-making, inviting us to examine how context, cognitive processes, and everyday experiences shape the choices that we make. To formally introduce our distinguished international lecturer, may I now invite Ms. Christine Ann Sihuan, Head of the Education Program, to present our guest speaker for the first lecture.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Yan, good morning. So I'm very we are very happy to see that we are in full house. So we hope that everyone will stay up until the afternoon. So, it is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker for today. He is an associate professor at the Pontifical University of Salamanca in Spain, where he teaches strategic brand, online marketing, human resource management, economics, and business management. He is also an accomplished researcher whose work focuses on business strategy, family business, corporate governance, marketing, sustainability, and international business. He earned his PhD in business economics from the University of Salamanca, graduating outstanding cum laude with an international doctorate. His impressive academic background also includes master's degrees in business economics, research and business management, a degree in law, specializing in business law, and a diploma in pedagogy for higher education. He is accredited by Spain's ANECA as both professor contratado, doctor, and professor de universidad privada. Throughout his career, our guest speaker has received numerous international recognitions, including the Best Reviewer Award from the European Academy of Management, nominations for Best Paper and Best Presentation at leading international conferences, and prestigious research grants from the Spanish Ministry of Economics. His research has been published in international recognized journals, including the International Business Review and the Journal of Business Strategy. An active member of the global academic community, he has delivered lectures and presentations across Europe through international conferences and the Erasmus Plus program. His dedication to research, innovation, and international collaboration continues to make a meaningful impact on the business, education, and higher education around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Fernando Reyes Reina.
Okay, so hi everyone. Good morning. Okay, a second. Is this working? There we go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, thanks everyone for the warm welcome. Thanks for such nice words from every presenter before me. And thank you for coming, making time to come for this conference. I see a lot of people. So hopefully we can interact in some way, okay? Yeah, I feel a bit restrained here, so maybe. Okay, yeah, this I think works best. Okay, so yesterday we talked a bit about data visualization, and the idea was to make these lectures as interdisciplinary as possible. Yeah? So this is a lecture on economics and on behavioral economics, but I don't want to give an economically focused lecture, okay? So I am, of course, a PhD in economy, but I think behavioral economics, which is my area of expertise, can help all of the other areas, right? Can inform all of the other areas as well. And this is what I'm going to try to focus on. Okay, so bear with me, right? The idea is to explore what changes can we find in economic reasoning that might help explain behavior, right? Let's keep in mind, and this is something I always tell in my, to my economy students and to my students in business in general, that economics is still a social science, okay? So people tend to think that because in economics we use very complicated, complex statistical analysis and a lot of in general mathematical equations to explain situations, it's a lot different than other social sciences like sociology, psychology. In reality, and this is a tough pill to swallow for economists, but economics explains the same as psychology, right? We can only explain a fraction of reality. We can try to simplify it. This is what we do. Yeah? We think we are and Samuelson, a famous economist, said, economics is the queen of social sciences. Well, yeah, queen, king, whatever, it's still social sciences, right? And behavioral economics tends to come as a second wave of economists that think, okay, maybe, just maybe, there are some things that have not yet been completely understood by traditional economics, right? By classical economics. And this is what behavioral economics tries to do, okay? So I'll try to explain this as quickly as possible and as simple as possible. And maybe that way you can come along with me in this explanation, okay? So, first off, before we begin, right? This is something we can all do in our seats, okay? And think about it yourselves, right? If I ask you, so what's 2 plus 2, right? And it comes really quick, right? Answer comes really quick, right? 2 plus 2 is 4, okay? That's easy, right? We can all do this. We all have the level of education enough to know this simple answer, okay? Okay, I know this seems like a very simple exercise, but bear with me, okay? What's 17 times 24? Not so quick, right? We better go back to 2 plus 2, right? That came really fast. And this is an exercise that just demonstrates how our brain works, okay? I know for a fact that almost, if not all, but I would say all of us here are able to calculate 17 times 24. Maybe some are saying 10 times 24 and then 7 times 24. Maybe some are rounding up in a different way. But if we are given enough time, yeah, we can all get to an answer, okay? We all know what the answer is in reality, okay? Yeah, but 2 plus 2 came really fast. Yeah. This didn't come as fast. Okay, 408, okay? That's the answer. And we thought about it using the same level of knowledge. We have not acquired any new knowledge from 2 plus 2 to 7 times, what was it? 17 times 24, yeah? What happened then? And let's think of what happened inside our brains, right? Maybe some of you, the fastest thinkers, could get to the answer quickly, right? And thought, okay, 17 times 24, let me think about it. 10 times 24, then 7 times 24, that's, okay, 408. Okay, fantastic. Great for you. Maybe some thought, yeah, I would need a piece of paper, some pencil, and then I could calculate it, right? And maybe some of you, most of you, thought, yeah, I don't know if I want to calculate 17 times 24. It's still too early, right, to be thinking that much. Why do you want me to think, right? And how come this guy comes from Spain to tell me 17 times 24? Right? What sense does this make? And some of you thought, I don't know and I don't care. And these are all valid answers. Why do we motivate ourselves to think about one or the other, right? We have the capacity. Maybe we just don't want to, right? Maybe we just don't have the motivation. Because if I had said, for example, okay, 17 times 24, whoever gives me the answer gets to pass on whichever class is the hardest of your degree. I'm sure a lot of you would have come up with the answer, right? Because I've given you motivation. Or to some, maybe I would have said, okay, 17 times 24, and I have here, whatever, right? 100 euros or 200 euros. And a lot of you would have said, yeah, for 200 euros I can think of 17 times 24. Yeah? That's enough, right? Yeah, but you know for a fact that if you don't answer 17 times 24, nothing's going to happen, right? You're still going to be able to pass your classes. Yeah? So you have no extra motivation to do that operation, right? Other than follow this lecture, right? Which you're probably sure you can follow even if you don't have to calculate 17 times 24. Okay, so what I wanted to say about this is that the exact functioning of our brain for these two exercises is, let's say, summed up by Daniel Kahneman, who said, yeah, we have, let's say, two systems that operate jointly in our brain, system 1 and system 2, and we often rely on system 1, right? And this is why usually there's a lot of decisions that we don't think of, right? Just before, someone was saying, what was the first decision you made? So let's think about that, right? Because, you know, every decision has an economic result, right? There's an economic result for every decision because there's opportunity cost for every decision I make, okay? But think about how tiresome it would be to be in bed, open your eyes, and say, okay, what should I do first, right? Should I get out on the right side or on the left side of the bed? Because on the right side of the bed, I have my slippers. But on the left side of the bed, perhaps, that's my best side, so I sleep on that side. Right? No, maybe I'll get out by the front. We don't do that, right? We go out instinctively because we operate on system 1, right? We get out of the bed and that's it, right? We put our slippers or not. Sometimes we don't find them because we are not thinking about that because our brain would be too tired by 9 o'clock if we were thinking about every single decision, right? Think about if the first thing you open your eyes and you see is your cell phone, maybe if you were thinking about it, maybe you would say, no, I have read some studies that say this is not good for my health. This might be a distraction, right? So we operate on system 1. And this is not a bad thing. We do that because most decisions, the economic repercussions or the repercussions on our day-to-day are not so important. Yeah? We can operate that way. We take the shortcuts we have, right? However, sometimes we have to operate on system 2, which is slow, has more effort, right? This is the system we need to calculate 17 times 24. We have that ability, we just choose to use it selectively. Right? And this is the same for every decision we make, right? And this just goes to show that it doesn't mean we're lazy, it just means we're human. If we operate on system 1 on a daily basis, it's just because that has, by experience, we have learned that we can do that without having catastrophic results. Yeah? And we leave system 2 for when I need it. I have that there. When I need it, I use that resource. If not, I put it away. I operate on system 1, right? So Daniel Kahneman is a Nobel Prize of economics, despite not being an economist, which is really tough to do. Yeah, and he explained how these systems work, right? Let's test this again. Okay. Think about this example, right? And I'm going to use several examples, right? So we're going to have to think about it in our seats. Yeah? We have a snail that climbs a 10-meter post. Yeah? Every day, the snail goes up 2 meters and down 1 meter each night. Yeah? So how many days does it take to reach to the top? Dean said 10 already. Yeah? Any other answers? So I would imagine most of you would operate, like Dean said, 10 days, right? 2 meters up, 1 meter down. Times 10? Yeah. That's how it works. Yeah? Yeah, in reality, it takes 9 days, right? So on the 9th day, you've already reached the top. You don't come down. However, most of you, if I would have pressed you on time, would have said 10, because that comes quick, right? 10. Let's go to the next question, right? It's system 1. Yeah, if you thought 10, like I imagine most of you must have, it just goes to show what I'm speaking of already, okay? So first, we have to think, first answer is not always last word, right? Yeah, maybe we can question a bit ourselves, right? Our reasoning ability. Right? Despite you have a lot of education, a lot of knowledge, I was talking about this yesterday, it's healthy to question yourself, your knowledge. Not to doubt, but to question, right? It's okay. It's normal. We have limits. Okay? We just have to acknowledge them, and that's okay. It's no problem at all, right? So what happens when an economic model assumes that we always calculate correctly? Well, this is exactly what happens in economics, right? Because if you think about it, economists, we economists have such big ego, right? We say the law of supply and demand. The law of supply and demand. As if it was a written law, right? Something that cannot be broken. It's not a law. So, simplification of reality. You know what is a law? Gravity. That is a law. If that doesn't work, that's chaos. That works all the time, every time. Supply and demand doesn't. Right? So how come we call it a law? Because we assume that we always calculate correctly. We assume a lot of things, right? In my presentations, I always, I'm not sure how I'm not known as Dr. Ceteris Paribus, right? Because this is something I repeat to my students, right? Ceteris Paribus. If everything else remains the same, then this happens, right? Supply, demand, whatever. The thing is, nothing stays the same. Everything changes. The only thing constant is change. So how come economists say if everything stays the same and then explain whichever economic model? Yeah. Because we love to simplify reality. We have to. It works, right? The law of supply and demand. I'm not here to talk against the law of supply and demand, right? This was made by people who are way smarter than I am, and it works. It's a simplification of reality that works most of the time, but it's not a law. This is not physics. This is social science, right? And social science is not exact. It's not mathematics. Right? We assume certain things to simplify reality and to explain human behavior. And mostly we explain it. Yeah? Law of supply and demand mostly works, right? If there's scarcity, prices go up. It works almost all the time. Not all the time, 100% of the time, but most. Enough to say, yeah, we can call it a law. However, gravity does not fail. That is mathematically proven, right? Which is not the same for economics, right? Because we like to create models that simplify reality, but models, by definition, leave out some information. Because if we use all available information, we cannot study anything, right? What do economists do in reality, right? We compare this variable to this other variable. How do they relate? And if they relate. But we have to compare only two variables. But there are a lot of other variables as well. That doesn't mean that they don't matter. It just means that that's another comparison. There's a short story by Lewis Carroll. Lewis Carroll is the writer of Alice in Wonderland. Lewis Carroll wrote, it was more of a poem in reality, but wrote a small story about a king that said to some of his workers, make me a map, an exact map, as precise as you can. And then whoever was working on maps in that kingdom made a map and said, here you go, king, there's your map. This gets you from point A precisely to point B. So the king followed instructions, went from point A, and got really close to point B, but not exactly. So he went back and said, no, this doesn't work. Make a precise map. So the cartographers made a bigger map, more precise, more to scale. And the king took it and went again from point A to point B. And point B was in sight, but still not exactly standing in point B. And he said, no, I want a precise map, as precise as possible. And he made a map as big as reality, right? And guided each step, which was no map, right? It was exactly a step-to-step process, right? So what this says is maps simplify reality as well, yeah? And they work, they help. Well, economics does that as well. We simplify reality. It works. It's helpful. We should continue doing that. But it's not reality itself, right? We have to remember that there are some limitations. And with those limitations, there are some risks we are willing to choose. Yeah? And the risks is what behavioral economics focuses on, right? Yeah, so in behavioral economics, yeah, we assume a few things such as, for example, full information. We all know the options. When we take an economic decision, we know all the information there is to know, right? We know what the consequences would be. We know all the information we need to have, right? And we take decisions by processing all this information. So we have all the available information, and then we take a decision after analyzing each step and after analyzing each of the consequences. But this is not reality, right? This is something this guy could do, but it's not what we do on a day-to-day basis, right? So, because not only would it be too tiresome to only use system 2, but sometimes we just don't have the information, right? Sometimes we would get too tired. There would be what we call cognitive overload if we do that. Yeah? Also, preferences, another assumption we make in economy, classical economics, preferences will be the same. So, what's true today will be true tomorrow. Right? For all reality, for all economic decisions. But this once again, is disproven by context. Let me put an example, okay? We have two desserts. Bibingka, which I tried, it's really good, yeah? And vanilla ice cream. So think about, each of you individually, think about which you like best, right? Let's see a show of hands so that we wake up, okay? Who likes best ice cream? Show of hands. Okay? Wow, a lot. Bibingka is really good. What's wrong with you? Okay, who likes best bibingka? Okay, good. Okay, think of this. You have a decision to make. You have to choose what you want today. Those who said bibingka would choose bibingka, right? Today. What about if I offer the same tomorrow? Maybe you choose bibingka again. What about the day after tomorrow? Bibingka is good. I really, really like it. By the end of the week, you'll be craving ice cream, right? I would say, yeah, bibingka is good. It's really good. But right? Ice cream's good too, right? Or the other way around, right? And this is human behavior, right? So what happened with this assumption, right? If something's better one day, the next day would be the same. Yeah, but that's not the way we operate, right? That's not reality. It mostly explains, right? Those of us who would pick bibingka would say, yeah, that's my behavior mostly, 95% of the time, 99% of the time. If we were to say it as a mathematician, yeah, with a standard deviation of whatever. Yeah, but that's not how we work, right? So it mustn't win every time. Yeah? Think about this. Another example, perhaps a monetary one that might make you decide different as well, right? So the situation is this, right? We have 1,000 pesos or 100 pesos, right? You have 100 pesos in your hand. You have 1,000 pesos in a table, let's say, at the end of the hallway or a room, right? The thing is, you have a train to catch, and you have 10 seconds to catch that train. What does economics say? Economics says, yeah, depends cost of the train, right? If the train costs less than 1,000, but more than 100, you'll go to the end of the room, grab the 1,000 pesos, the train will leave you, and then you'll buy a second ticket. But what the train does not, what the classical economist cannot explain is, yeah, what happens if the train takes me to where my boyfriend, girlfriend is, and I haven't seen her in 2 months, or him. Yeah, maybe I don't need 1,000 pesos, maybe I need 100 pesos, and that's okay. Right? So context matters, right? And decision making is not as objective as classical economists tell us or try to make us think it is, right? So behavioral economics is what explains this context, right? Pays attention to this. Says, yeah, maybe these behaviors, which are strange, can be predicted, right? Maybe there's a way we can understand why they are choosing to do this different type of behavior. Yeah? So another thing that classical economists assume is self-control. And it's unlimited as well, right? We're not animals, we have self-control. Okay? We know what we should do and what we shouldn't do. I hope no one here smokes. But if someone does, how do you feel about self-control? And if you know someone who smokes and you've seen them, I need to have a smoke, I need to have a smoke. What happens with that person and self-control? Can they not control themselves? Do they not know that smoking is bad? Of course. They just choose not to restrain themselves. And they're not less human. It's normal, completely normal human behavior, right? Why do sometimes when we have to study, and if you're teaching, when we have to prepare a class, when we have to study, yeah, but the World Cup, Spain is winning, so I want to watch the World Cup. But I know I have to prepare an exam, I know I have to prepare a lecture, but, yeah, where's my self-control? Yeah, my self-control is when I'm at 1 in the morning working because I watched the football game, and then I have to work until 2 in the morning and get less sleep. I'm sure this has happened to you in some capacity, right? Yeah, I want to watch this and I can't because I have to work, but what am I going to do? Let's watch it. Who cares? You only live once. Huh? Completely normal human behavior. Well, classical economists would say, no, he's not going to watch the game because that would make no sense, because he has a responsibility. He knows he has a responsibility. He knows he has to work. He knows he needs his job. He knows he won't have enough time. But what happens then? I still watch the game. Yeah? The World Cup games in Spain were at 1 o'clock in the morning. If you saw pictures of the World Cup games, did you see little people or a lot of people? And what, they don't have to work? Yeah, it tells us they're human, right? They've made the decision that perhaps classical economists would dislike or disapprove. Yeah, but they're still making that decision. And we can predict that they would have made that decision, right? This is why there were public forums to watch those games, for example. It's totally predictable. Yeah? Think about, you have to study for an exam. Yes, but I don't know. There's a famous female tennis player from Filipinas, right? Yeah, she's playing the finals. I want to watch that. But it's at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, but she's playing the finals, first time. Yeah. Okay, so classical economists have created this figure called Homo economicus, right? Which is the human being thought of an economically rational being. And if an economical rational being would exist, would look like this, right? First reference is for the professors. Second references and third is for younger audiences, right? But what do they have in common? Completely rational behavior, right? Not dominated by emotions. Why? Why would you do that, right? And seeing all the information, right? Processing. If you remember Doctor Strange in the Avengers movies, he saw all the available universes and all the possibilities, and there was only one possibility, right? Which means he had all the information available in the world, and he made the decision logically based on that information. Yeah, this is good as a benchmark, right? This is something to aspire for. This is a good way of presenting humans, reasoning. But as a biography of humans, this is terrible, right? This is incorrect, right? Because economics Economists think of reality in a way, everyday choices in a way, but then humans happen, right? And we tend to look more like this guy, right? We make decisions that are less reasoned, let's say. And that doesn't make us incompetent. That does not make us worse off. It just makes us human. That's just human behavior. Okay? So, this is a character that's so popular because he, in a way, reminds us of our humanity, right? Of how we take decisions sometimes, right? He's a universally recognized figure, right? And the different frictions that we have remind us of human behavior, right? Because if we think about what are some of the frictions we find with the economic models, right? Economic models will say, yeah, we have unlimited rationality. We can understand things. 17 times 24, that's something you can do, of course. But I don't want to, right? We had limited self-control, right? Self-control has, I'm sure to most of you, something like this has occurred. You're working, but I don't know, choose whatever date you're working, but it's a Friday. So by the end of the week, and I have to work on something that's really important. But you look out the window and, look, a squirrel. Yeah, a squirrel. It's an animal you've seen 1,000 times, probably. But you keep looking at the squirrel. And then you go back to work. And then you look out the window again. It's raining. So what? It rains all the time, right? You've seen rain. You've got wet. Nothing different. We have limited self-control, right? And also social preferences. Classical economists would tell you that we take decisions based on selfishness, right? What maximizes our benefit is what an economist would say. Right? Yeah, then explain to an economist people like Mother Teresa, right? What maximized her benefit, right? What explanation can economists give to these type of figures? Of course, not everyone's Mother Teresa, yeah? But a lot of people who do a lot of good, like her, with no interest exists in the world. How do we economically explain why these people do what they do? And this is tough for an economist to explain, okay? So, behavioral economics is this bridge between, let's say, normative and descriptive analysis, right? It's what helps articulate a coherent view of reality, right? So we have to ask ourselves not only how should a perfect person choose, but how do they actually choose? What happens in reality? Not only what is the predictable outcome, right? Because Dan Ariely and others said, yeah, this is irrational, but it's not unpredictable. It's very predictable, right? And he made a book about it, a very good book. I recommend it, called Predictably Irrational. And he said, among other things, a lot of examples of how we are irrational but very predictable, right? Think about a house that's in flames, smoke coming out of the house. and there's a mother outside the house and says, "My baby is inside," would that mother enter the house, or would she stay outside? She would probably go in, right? Mothers here would tell me she would go in definitely, I'm sure. Yeah? Yeah? And this is irrational behavior. She might get burned, she might die. This goes against human nature. Right? Why would she go in? There's danger for her life. Because her kid's there. And this is irrational, but very predictable. Right? A lot of situations happen this way because we're, as I said, once again, human. We make decisions based on information, but based on other things as well. Not only using system 2. Okay? So, these are patterns we tend to see. And we should see these patterns in everything we do. Right? So if you're studying, I don't know, to become a nurse, to become a medic, right? Think of some unpredictable, some predictable actions that might be irrational, right? Like, for example, if there's someone sick and they have to put into this patient's vein some medication, perhaps you've seen some patients, they tie them up to the bed. Why? Because if they wake up and they see that they are with those gadgets, they might rip them off, which is irrational, because that would do harm unto yourselves. But it's human behavior. It's predictable. That's why you tie them. Right? Like this, we see these patterns of decision-making in every field. This is why behavioral economics is so important, right? Predictably irrational. Last time you went to the supermarket, think about this. When you were paying in the cashier, whatever you went there to buy, right? What items can you find in the cashier? I haven't been to a supermarket in Philippines, but I'll tell you what you can find. Chocolates, candies, yeah? Gum, chewing gum. Why? You think this is casually there? Why not put flour, eggs, milk? Yeah? Because we're predictable. Because we're taking our list of the supermarket, and more often than not, we will not find chocolate, milk chocolate, M&Ms. But when we're paying, we say, I deserve this. Right? I've worked hard. Look all the things I'm buying. I'm even buying diapers that are not for me, for my kids. So I deserve a prize, right? Put me some M&Ms, please. It's predictable, right? So every field uses this information, right? Okay. Yeah, this is an example that was used. So there was a scientific study about this. We have too big of an audience to do, so I'll explain the example rather than try to do it, okay? So think of the last 3 digits of your ID, identification. Just have them in mind, the last 3 digits, right? So if I were to make an auction, right, and say, I don't know, what do I have here? So I'm going to auction off this controller, and then, I don't know, maybe my watch, and whatever. I picked 3 or 4 items. There was a study that proved that for each item you are auctioning, if the last 3 digits of your ID card are high, let's say 89, right? Or 789 or 899, high numbers, you're going to bid higher than if your last 3 digits are, say, 011, 123, or lower numbers. Why? Because that's just human behavior, right? Because there's a anchoring happening there that is interfering with your rationale. You don't have to believe me. This is a study done in France by 500 participants. It shows this effect, right? This anchoring effect, okay? So, Dan Ariely and who else was there? Lowenstein, and some other researcher already proved this, okay? Let's see another example. It might be even better. Here. Look. If I were to ask, and show of hands so that we can wake up, yeah? Which colored line continues the black line? The blue or the red? Who's team blue? Who says the blue line continues? Show of hands, okay? Who says the red line continues? Okay? Let's see. You're probably, most of you are probably too young to remember, but there was once a time when the internet was decided between a team that saw a dress colored blue and a team that saw a dress colored gold and white. Look it up. This is the same effect. The effect, not the illusion, right? This is the same effect. Those of you, and this is a real image, right? I promise I have not altered anything. So the red line is the one that follows the black line. If I go back, and I will go back, those who saw the blue line as continuum still see the blue line continuing. Yeah? So team blue is still team blue. Despite, believe me, I'm not trying to trick you, this is the line. It's red. Yeah? And this just goes to show that our perception is not neutral. And we take decisions, economic decisions. We take everyday decisions with this perception, right? So just knowing the trick doesn't make it disappear, right? It's the same as if a magician explains us the trick and then he does it again, we'll be less amazed, but we might not be able to see it still. Even though I know what's happening, I know what's going to happen, but it's still amazing. Yeah? It's still a nice trick. So we're biased that way. That does not mean we're dumb. That does not make us any more dumb, right? It's just how humans operate. And we should learn about how humans operate to then present information to humans, make them take decisions on anything. Right? Another study, where was this done? Reden von Leeuwen. Yeah? Okay. This study asked participants, choose between these two options. You have to choose a fruit or a chocolate, right? Which is your preferred option? But not for today, for next week. So think about it individually, right? if I were to ask you, so what would you prefer next week on a Tuesday to have after lunch? A chocolate or a fruit, right? Well, that study said 74% of participants said, I'll have a fruit for next week, okay? Thank you. This just goes to show we have fantastic intentions, right? We know, now fruit is good for my organism, it's good for my health. I should have a fruit. Fruit is good. Next week I'll have a fruit. Right? So think about where you've heard this, right? Next week I'll, whatever, insert here. Right? On Monday, I'll start the gym. Monday. Today, it's late. Monday better. Right? So, if this group, in this experiment, were then told, now, for today, what do you have? Most participants, I'll have a chocolate. Yeah. For today, give me the chocolate. Monday, fruit. Tuesday. Yeah. Same person, same options. What's happening? The moment's not the same, right? So 70% for today chose chocolate in that study. Right? The same 74% or similar, right? 74% chose next week fruit, today chocolate. Right? This is just, again, human behavior, right? In the future, we're saints. But today, I want some chocolate. Okay? So, think about this in all of the other rationales, right? Now, in the future, I'll study tomorrow. No, next week, I'll begin to study for the final exams. Next week, without a doubt, because that will give me enough time. Then next week comes and I say, next week, next week, you know? Yeah. And this has consequences for everything, right? So no, I'll start to save some money to buy whatever I need on the 15th when I get paid. But in reality, I get paid on the 15th and I say, no, on the 1st because something came up and I have to pay now. Okay. You've heard of this phrase, which is the road, in Spanish its translation would be, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Right? Yeah, we don't want to be bad, but in the process, something happens. Yeah? Okay, show of hands. One of the last exercises, okay? Who here has a driver's license or can drive whatever, something, or even bicycles, right? Driver's license. If not, just think of drivers in Manila. How are drivers in Manila? A, B, or C? C. Okay, yeah. Almost unanimous, you see? Okay, how about yourselves? Yeah. So, I imagine that most of you are above average, right? It's the others that they can't drive. Crazy people out there. If they only drove like everyone here, right? And this is where mathematics comes in, right? Because, you can say, probabilistically, it makes sense, because if you add up, maybe we have to use math to say, it's still true. In reality, what happens is, we have to calibrate our self-assessment, right? Confidence can then support actions like entrepreneurship, right? Now I'm confident that I will be able to maintain this business because whoever else didn't think about this and this and that. Yeah, we make decisions like that on everything, not only entrepreneurship, right? Leadership, learning. Yeah, because they don't study. They don't get good grades. I will study. I will show them. They don't understand as much as I can understand, so maybe, poor them, right? Yeah. There's all of these fallacies, and we take decisions with all of these fallacies, right? 2 weeks, 2 days, almost. In Spain, we have I'm not sure, I'm sure it's different here, probably better. But in Spain, we have a saying that if you get to meet someone and say, "Where are you?" "I'm getting there." He's in his house. He's still in the house, hasn't even taken a shower. Now, 5 minutes, I'm there. Yes, of course. Right? And we take decisions like this in all of the aspects as well. Right? So we have to plan ahead. This is not something that's irrational behavior because we are rational people and we take decisions with our minds. No, yes, but then we operate as well as this way, right? There's another study showed, you know how your supermarkets are supposed to have a lot of options so that people can choose, because economic reasoning tells us if you have more information, then you'll make better decisions. And you'll make the best decisions if you have all the information. So if in a supermarket you have 40 different kinds of jellies, jam, you'll make a more informed decision than if you only present 3. Right? So it's better for a supermarket to have a lot of options. Well, not so much. Right? What does reality show? Reality shows that, why is that? And think about it, right? If you go to a supermarket and you see 60 different options for jelly, 60, gluten-free, right? Organic, fair trade. From this place, that place, only by women and empowered for women, and 100 different options. Who has the time to analyze 60 different jellies? I don't have the time, right? Give me 3 or 4 options, and then I'll buy. Okay? So, when you have less, there's no choice overload. You can take decisions, right? And that is enough, okay? Free market economy. Economists say there's a free market economy, and in free market economy, law of supply and demand is what tells the price, right? So, what do businesses try to do? Maximize their profit, of course, right? So, after a typhoon, water bottles go from 25 to 40. Why? Scarcity. More demand. Law of supply and demand, right? This is normal behavior. Yeah, but how do we feel about this, right? Think about, and yeah, all of you were aware enough to remember pandemic, right? What happened to prices of masks? during the pandemic, right? Law of supply and demand happened. And how did we feel about it? Was it correct? Was there any justice behind this? Was it fair? But fairness is not explained in law of supply and demand. However, we take that into account. It's important for everyday decisions. Okay? So we can use law of supply and demand and still this is not working. Right? It can still feel wrong. Right? People can say, yeah, I'm not sure about this. This seems to not be working. Yeah? So think of all of these examples and how we're just facing our own human nature in each of these examples. An economist would say, okay, if you do the numbers and you get two options, right? You have a 50% to win 1,500 and a 50% to lose 1,000. Your options are good, right? If you calculate them out, you have more options to win. Then you would take that gamble. Reality tells us you would not probably, right? Why? Because humans are loss averse. Because 1,000 I already have in my pocket. And I would rather keep that than risk. Even if the reward is plenty. Right? This is why if you have a favorite mug where you drink coffee in the house, it's probably not the most expensive, but that's your mug. Right? A pajama that you sleep in, this is my favorite. Is it the nicest? Probably not, but I wouldn't change it, right? Because this is, fantastic. It's human behavior. Yeah. So how we present information, and I'm already finishing up. How we present information is important. Context matters. How I frame information matters, right? This is what we saw yesterday in the presentation of data visualization. How do I explain this correctly? How do I communicate this correctly, right? Well, how do I frame decision making is also part of the decision itself. Yeah? So, the environment is literally telling us what to do. There are a lot of elements that are pushing us towards a decision, right? I'll tell you another example used in, and I don't know if I have it. Yeah. In this book of Richard Thaler, another famous example. And yeah, I have to apologize in advance for this example because it's a bit not the best likable example, but it's really illustrative, so I'm going to use it anyways. But airport in Amsterdam had a very big problem. They were investing way too much money on cleaning for the airport. And which areas did they have to clean the most in the airport? Which do you think? Bathrooms. Yeah? Which bathroom specifically? Guys? Male or female? Male. Yeah? They were investing too much money in cleaning bathrooms, specifically male bathrooms. It was a huge amount of their budget. And they were thinking, how do we reduce this? This makes no sense, right? How come people can't act like people and just go to the bathroom normally and have to make such a mess? What can we do to educate people? And they created, without knowing, what then Richard Thaler came to call a nudge, a small push, right? A nudge. It's not that they instructed what to do. They just gave them a little bit of motivation, right? You know what the cleaning administrative company and cleaning company did to reduce the budget 70% in men's bathroom? They put in the urinals a sticker of a fly. And this is genius, right? They put a sticker of a fly inside the urinal, and that was enough, right? Because then men had an aim. Yeah? You had somewhere you could point to. 70% of a Amsterdam airport budget. It's a lot of money with a sticker of a fly. It's no wonder, particularly men, you've seen now a lot of other things, right? Like football balls and a lot of other things. Well, they're made for you. They're telling you, look, here, aim here, aim there, exactly. Yeah? And this is just predictable, right? They're not limiting our capacity to do what we want to do, right? Because you can still behave like you want to behave. You don't have to aim there. They're not even telling you aim here. They're just giving you the option. It's there. Then you do what you want. Yeah? This is a nudge. Okay? And this is what we have to think about. Look, I found a fantastic example of a nudge in Philippines. Look, probably you know this better than I just found about this recently as I was preparing this lecture. But this is a public elementary school in Zamboanga del Norte. Zamboanga del Norte. Yeah? Zamboanga del Norte. And what's the percentage? 17.3. Okay. So what did the schools in Zamboanga del Norte do? Right? They wanted everyone in the school they wanted to promote a behavior for students. What did they want the students to do? After going to the bathroom, wash your hands. Right? And they came up with this, a path from the bathroom to the lavatory. Right? With this simple nudge, right? They had a few other things, right? They had posters and stickers of watching eyes in the bathroom, and I don't remember what else. They had an arrow pointing to where the soap dish was, but mostly they had this pathway. Okay? So the problem they wanted was how people knew they had to wash their hands, but they weren't acting on it. So you had to prepare a nudge for them, to invite them to do that behavior they want to promote. 17 percentage points. And this is not 17 because they watched it. No. They made an actual study of it, right? So I have the study, I read the study as well, right? So half of the 132 schools were assigned to do this intervention. There was a control group. There was a whole study done. And this whole study then found out that with a 95% confidence, 17% washed their hands more. Right? This is just an invitation. You remember yesterday I told you about the country that was the leading country in organ donation, right? Spain. And I told you why, right? It's because everyone's a donor. You have to opt out. It's not because we love our neighbors, no. It's just the choice architecture is different. And this choice architecture points us to do that, right? But choice architecture is what we live with on a day-to-day basis. If you've ever wondered, right? When you go to a supermarket, the items that are on eye level are the items they want to promote. If you have to pay to be in some place, you pay to be in that place. That's the premium place to be in. You don't pay to be at the top. You don't pay to be at the bottom. You pay to be at eye level. Right? Why? Because this is a nudge. Supermarkets are filled with nudges. Right? That's why in most supermarkets, where are the eggs? Where's the flour? Go to the back. Walk around. That's why if you go to an IKEA, it looks like a maze, right? How do I get out of this place? Well, walk around like 5 hours and then you'll find the exit. And in the process, buy something. Yeah? And it's so long, you can even buy a hot dog, cheap. Nudges everywhere, right? And who makes the decision, right? Because, we have to think, and this is important. This is a question I got asked regularly by the questions that were sent to me. So, how can I get people to act a certain way without obligating them to do so, right? Because nudging is different than restricting, right? Think about the examples I am giving you. I am not taking away any options, but I'm presenting them in a way that are easy to take. You have less friction. It's the easiest route. So we have to think constantly on what we can do to improve the desired behavior. Right? How we can create these nudges. Okay, so who decides what's better? Right? Whoever is creating the policy, right, has to ask themselves this ethical question, right? Because choice architecture should be all these things, right? Should be transparent, should make it easier to avoid the undesired behavior, should be based on evidence, should be proportionate, right? And we have to think of presenting information, right? And the choice architecture in a way that people can recognize what has been designed, right? A nudge that has the intention to help can become very easily manipulation if I take away options, if I take away information. Okay? Okay, coming now to an end. I'm going to pass on to this mic, right? So, I leave you with these 3 ideas, okay? In general, right? Economists present models, and models are useful. They help. They really do. Behavioral economists do not dispute the usefulness of models. They recognize the limits of models, which is different, right? People are predictably human, as we've seen, right? They're not homo economicus. We're not always on system 2. And how things are presented to us leads to choices, right? So think about the nudges. One of the most interesting questions I got was, Why do students postpone their work when they intend to do it but they don't, right? And there's different answers for that, right? It could be because of present bias. Remember what I told you about chocolate and fruit, right? Yeah, because I'm going to study then, but now I don't feel like studying. It could be because I'm thinking, no, I have a plan made. Students might think, no, I have a plan made to study. And in this plan, I don't have to study today. It could be because it's not clear which is the first step. And this is something that we can do as educators, right? We can try to give small nudges so that students can actually make it easier for them to promote the desired behavior, to study. Small steps, right? Do this small homework, and then this small homework, and then this, and then this, and then this. You'll be able to do it all then, okay? And maybe, just maybe, we're giving them too many paths, right? Make it easier, simplify it. Like the jellies. Who needs 60 types of jellies? Why should I do several different ways of getting a grade? No. 2 paths, 3 paths, simplify it. Maybe there's choice overload. Well, you can do a work and you present it, or you can also do a practice, or you can also, come on, maybe. Just food for thought, okay? Okay, I'm going to finish with this, so just leaving you with a general idea, right? Think about what's in the environment already and what's nudging you already, right? What's pushing you to do something, right? And then you'll start to think like a behavioral economist. And hopefully, you can think about some of these examples and say, this is what the Spanish guy was talking about. Yeah? And then, this hour or so has been useful. Thank you. Yeah? Any questions? I'll be here as well. Yeah?
Here's your microphone.
Sound.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fernando. That was a very interesting discussion. I actually prepared a very short in Spanish. Muchas gracias por esta presentación tan excelente, Dr. Fernando. Un aplauso más para el Dr. Reyes. Let's give him a round of
Thank you.
applause,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting industry, actually, or a discipline, behavioral economics. Now, I was reading some scholarship about it, and they're telling that most people make decisions based on heuristics, right, or mental shortcuts. Now, based on your experience, what implications does this have for people like educators or communications practitioners who want to have a positive impact on behavior of their communities?
Well, on educators, we tend to forget easily of our tendencies just a few years ago, right? And we tend to say, but students have it so easy nowadays. Why are they not doing this? I only ask them to do. Yeah, but in reality, perhaps they know and they don't have the proper nudges. We haven't created the proper nudges, and perhaps they're just being really, really human, right? They're just behaving in a way that's not beneficial to them, and we have to learn to deal with that as well, right? So how can I promote this, right? This is the general idea.
And that makes it really more interesting to study them, right? Now, for our audience, you are actually welcome to air your sentiments or share your insights or ask questions. But while they are preparing, I have one more question, sir. I like to take the conversation a little bigger by looking at how algorithms play a role in the entire scheme of things. Because now we have concepts like brain rot economy. Now, what does it have to do with behavioral economics?
Everything. If you think about it, what do algorithms do in reality, right? They study our behavior. So what draws your attention? And then they send more of that, and more and more and more. And they feed you that, right? So in reality, what they're doing is just giving you more of what you already said, messaged, or communicated you like, you would want, right? This is why when we're talking about whatever, like for example, we're talking about a trip, we're talking about research, then the algorithm will feed you more and more of this. We have to bear in mind that the work of the algorithm is to maintain you there as long as possible, right? To feed for your attention. The more they retain your attention, the better they're doing their work.
They want us to be under their spell, right?
Exactly.
Right, and this is something that's not entirely intrinsic because that's in the environment, right? Structural, in other words. From our audience, any questions or insights, perhaps? This is a very interesting topic. My students perhaps can ask questions. I remember because one of my students are actually studying brain rot. So Skibidi, 6'7", right? Riz also. For sure you can connect with that. So that's what we are discussing now. So you might want to ask questions, guys. We have faculty from political science, Renz.
Good day, Dr. Fernando. So, thank you for a wonderful presentation regarding behavioral economics. So, my question is, since behavioral economics was also related to rationality, so we will not left behind the notions that in behavior we need to also to consider the rationality of an individual. And as a people or as a citizen of a particular country, sometimes rationality becomes irrational. What does it mean? In the tragedy of the commons, one of the founding scholarship about critical economics, we criticize rationality and behaviors as a, what you call this one, enhancing the self-interest of an individual. So, for you, Dr. Reyes, how does behavioral economics answer the problems that the tragedy of the commons have been criticized for many years? For example, the scarcity of the resources, the policy of our lawmakers, even the government or the administrative programs. It talks about self-interest. It talks about scarcity of our resources. Given back, how will the behavioral economics what you call this one answer these problems?
Okay, if I understood correctly, I wanted to highlight one thing first, that behavioral economics is not opposed to classical economics, it's complementing classical economics, right? So, in that regard, it's complementing other areas of knowledge as well, right? Sociology, psychology, it tries to incorporate that to economy. And this is normal behavior. Think about the field of economics has developed, and the development of classical economic, of neoclassical economists now gives way to a second wave of understanding, right? which is incorporating all these elements, right? Such as psychological elements, sociological elements, and how can we understand reality when it seems to contradict classical thinking, classical economists, let's say models, right? The idea here is, yeah, we can try to merge together these fields, right? Not eliminate or, let's say, discredit one of the theories, but use them together to understand the whole range of behavior, right? Not only social behavior, right? But also individual behavior and, of course, economical thinking, economical reasoning, right? Behind decisions as well. Yeah? Thank you.
Very interesting how scholarship is actually not one way. It's something that evolves through time, right, sir? Right. So can we have a few more questions from our audience? Any questions or insights from what Sir discussed earlier? Yes, Dr. Ana Lucero. Very interesting.
Thank you, sir, for helping me realize my gullibility. I think the presentation also showed me the realization that how gullible we are and using our weaknesses. I don't know if that is a weakness when these market people or the economy is trying to get our attention to buy their products. And on the positive side, this can also be used to get the attention of the people to act on something more important in our country. My question, sir, is, do you think this is also being used by the government to trick us or change our attention to more important things to attend to? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. No, yeah, I think behavioral economics makes us face or obliges us to face our humanity, right? And this is refreshing. I find it refreshing. It's good news to see that, yeah, you can still be really smart, but you're still human, right? You still fall for the Poggendorf illusion. You still fall for all these things that are basically human. It's not, they don't make you less smart or more gullible. It's just human behavior, right? And there's nothing we can do about it. Use of government, yeah. So choice architecture is really important. You see choice architecture every day as well. Think about, for example, when you have to subscribe to something online, right? And then you get an email, and then you have to, how do I put this? Like unsubscribe from a newsletter, right? Or why do you think, for example, Spotify gives 3 free months, right?
Premium.
This is all decisions that are based on our behavior, right? It's not that they want to give you 3 free months, it's that they know that if they give you 3 months, you'll forget by the 3rd month. And you'll pay. And you'll say, it's only $3.99. Why 99? Right? So think of all of the nudges we have to work against. And of course, we don't go with system number 2 all the time because our brain could not be able to handle it, right? So governments can use it and are using it in choice architecture, right? For example, what I told you about how Spanish government makes all of the citizens organ donors, but allows, of course, everyone to say no. I don't want to be an organ donor. But this is a way to frame a free decision that makes it easier for people to donate, right? So in these types of ways, the ways that you present the choice architecture, that be online or by filling out paper, as is the organ donation case in Spain, is also helpful, right? If you want people to subscribe to healthcare, well, then make a program that makes it easier. Give them a bit of nudges to facilitate all these things, right? All these positive decisions. Yeah? This is a way that is not only useful but should be implemented.
Do you have premium account in Spotify? All right. While you were discussing that, sir, I came across this terminology by Cory Doctorow. It's called, sorry for the term, institutification of the internet. It's something that's very much related to that, like with how tech companies are giving freemium accounts so that we are continuously engrossed to their services, right? But that also highlights the importance of media literacy among our youth, right, sir?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the amount of nudges we receive per day is amazing, right? So if we think about all of the influences we have to do something, small influences sometimes, right? And I'm talking about individually, not socially, because if we think social pressures, we would not end. Yeah? So if we think about all of these things and can try to rationalize on it, we are making freer decisions, which does not mean we'll change our decisions. Right? We can still make the same decisions. It's just more informed.
They say that we are living in a VUCA and BANI world, Dean, right? It's a very volatile, uncertain, complex, what's the A? Anxious, and many more. In other words, it's complex.
Yeah.
And that offers more challenges and at the same time opportunities for our younger generation. What would be your message to them?
Yeah, so I think you should be, at least I hope, with this, you think of two things, economy in a different light, right? How economics actually shapes our decision making in any way. We saw examples that are not at all related to economic reasoning, right? Fruit decisions, how do I drive, how does everyone else drive? So all of this information, we can see it on a day-to-day basis outside economic decisions. That's first. And then second, I would advise that you have to be intellectually hungry to recognize that there seems to be a lot of information that might help explain behavior, right? That might help explain not only behavior in my field of interest, but human behavior in general, right? And if I can apply that to my field of interest and to my life, all the better, right?
If we are going to sum it up, be critical, right, sir? Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Fernando Reyes. So there you go. Once again, thank you again, Dr. Fernando Reyes, for that very engaging lecture. And thank you to everyone who contributed to our discussion through your thoughtful questions and insights. Now, this concludes our morning session. We will now break for lunch and reconvene at 1 p.m. for our afternoon lecture, where we will shift our attention from the science of decision-making to the dynamics of influence in today's communication landscape. For your convenience, our university cafeteria is located downstairs, where a variety of meals and refreshments are available. Our student volunteers will be happy to assist you should you need directions or any assistance during the lunch break. This is for our visitors. And if you prefer to dine outside the campus, you'll also find several restaurants or fast food chains and coffee shops just a short walk from the university. We hope you enjoy our first session and continue the conversation we have started this morning and return refreshed for another stimulating session in the afternoon. Enjoy your lunch, and we shall see each other at 1 p.m. There is also an evaluation link, by the way, which you also need to answer, please. Okay, we'll have a very quick picture taking, please. Let's call on our photographers, please. Student photographers, please.
Sama kayo sa picture, don't leave. The ones on the balcony can stand. Maybe, para kita kayo sa picture. Kayo lapit na lang, yung nasa likod, dito sa baba. Come closer. Yan.
Dentistry students and medtech, see you later. 1 o'clock. 1:30.